this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a digital marketer in life sciences. My guest today is Thomas Ruggia. He's the president and CEO of Samsara Vision, a specialty medical device company focused on developing and innovating implantable ophthalmic technologies to improve vision for individuals with untreatable retinal disorders. So with that, welcome to the podcast.
Don, thanks for having me on, and just grateful. The whole Samsara Vision family thanks you for the opportunity for me to share our story. Obviously, our story is not just my story; it's the whole story of the whole company and our patients and surgeons around the world. So we're very appreciative of the time you're giving us here today.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, and I'm trying to think back. I don't think, out of all of my guests, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there was one drug, but I don't think out of any of my guests that we talked overall a lot about macular degeneration. So I am excited about the interview today. But before we dive into that, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how, first of all, you got involved in the medical device industry, and secondly, especially on the ophthalmology side?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sure. My passion and early life and my education came from helping people with disabilities. And I was a kinesiology major in undergrad, and I wanted my career to be centered around physical therapy. And my two drivers were to help handicapped populations, people with significant cognitive and physical handicaps. That was my driving force. I have a sibling he's a lifelong handicapped person, and my parents have raised a handicapped person. So I'm a person who is very close to people with disabilities, and it's a big driver and for my work. And so I was on that career path, and I had a person who I was very close with, who introduced me to the idea of being a pharmaceutical salesperson in the year 2000, which was also a great career path. I didn't know much about it, but I knew I had to pay for physical therapy school. So it did to being a pharma rep for a year or two made a lot of sense to me. Save a little money and then go back to physical therapy school. And that was sort of looked at it as a gap year, but that was now 25 years ago, and I fell in love with the business of the eye. I started with a company called Alcon, where I was a pharmaceutical rep to start my career. Moved quickly through the ranks. The person who introduced me to the company also moved quickly through the ranks. He's currently what was a CEO. He just exited a dermatology company. His name is Todd Zabodnik, and he introduced me to company Alcon. I got going and was quickly went from the pharmaceutical business into consumer medical technology, and then into surgical technology, and had the great fortune of being a district sales manager, marketing manager. And then one of the transformative roles in my career was a marketing director for all brands at Alcon in Asia Pacific, and where I had 19 countries, 19 times 3 different regulatory frameworks for approval of products. And it was just a great learning curve for a young professional to get experience in bringing products to market. And then from there, I went to Canada with Alcon, and then left Alcon to go to Johnson Johnson, where I first joined in retina cell therapy, where we had an innovative technology, cell-based therapy for age-related macular degeneration. And that's where I was introduced to the patient base, the macular degeneration patient base, specifically the geographic atrophy or late stage dry AMD patient base, which had very little in the terms of successful therapies. At the time, there was nothing for that patient group as they lost vision. And this patient group lost significant vision. So an aging person with geographic atrophy, let's say a patient around 70 years old might only be able to see the big E on the eye chart that you can see behind me. And it's a very limited, it's a central vision loss. So these patients have peripheral vision, but cannot see faces. And that at J&J was the first time I saw that patient group. And, it connected two drivers for me. One, the ophthalmic business, and two, the ability to impact the lives of patients with profound handicaps. And from there, I was in business development, was the commercial lead on the deal for Johnson and Johnson to acquire the AMO business from Abbott and bring in Johnson and Johnson Surgical Vision, where I had great mentors and leaders on that leadership team. There, learned a lot and was exposed to this company, which was called Vision Care at the time, and I was sort of the liaison inside J&J for this company, Vision Care, that had a telescopic implant that could bring vision back to patients with AMD. On the BD team, had various meetings with this company, and then got a call from their investors to see if I was interested in joining the company and being CEO. And that was the early days of what became Samsara Vision and what we've built to this point. Now I'm here 5 years. We've done incredible work and changed the lives of patients around the world. So yeah, exciting career, all in ophthalmology, but I've been exposed to so many different things and met so many great people along the way. I'm a very fortunate person. I don't think I'll go back to physical therapy, but I do leave that door open. You never know.
Yeah, it's funny with somebody in physical therapy in my family. I get why people want to be there and want to be connected, but at the same time, you definitely have an impact where you're at. So I can understand that too. After 25 years plus in the industry. Um, so how do you feel like your experience at Alcon and Johnson shaped your approach and leadership in the ophthalmology industry?
Yeah, the two very different companies. I've just been so fortunate that being in the right place at the right time and taking advantage of every one of those opportunities. The time when I was at Alcon between 2000 and 2015, there was so much change going on. Alcon was a small company, growing fast. So at the time I joined, I cannot remember exactly the turnover, but in my mind, I'm thinking like between 2 and 3, maybe 4 billion at the most was the total turnover, growing at 10 to 15% per year. When I was in Asia Pacific, we were growing north of 15%, close to 20%, some markets growing over 20%. So that massive growth, that speed of growth, created opportunities for young professionals to see the decisions at the top. And so I had points in my early career as a 30-something-year-old professional to be a director level person, maybe two people from the CEO. So you get to see a lot in the business. And as I talk to young professionals and people saying, how should I start my career? I only give them my experience. I think it's a good advice, not to start at the giant company because you'll never really get to see how companies are built and formed. I just was blessed to be there in a time period where there was, less than 10,000 employees. And there was a group of us that were between, I would say 25 and 40 years old, that, men and women alike that got the chance to have big roles, but we also had great relationships with each other, learn from each other. In Alcon, you kind of lived in the same neighborhood. So it was like a development pathway that was on like an F1 style development pathway where the speed of things was so quick. But the whole company was very execution oriented, solid strategy, but execution oriented, with the idea that a day lost was a day lost in strategy development or execution was a day lost in revenue, and they took that very serious. It was a sense of urgency company. All of us learned that sense of urgency, and so that's now in my DNA. And Alcon at that point, spawned quite a bit of leaders. If you look around the ophthalmology growth companies, startups, you'll see trickles and really not even trickles anymore. You'll see a great percentage of the CEOs, COs, and chief strategy people that are from that group, and group of people that I lived with, and in the neighborhood, and did social things with, running group. They're all now populating that C-suite the C-suites of companies in ophthalmology and a great deal of folks in dermatology as well. So that was the Alcon story. Going to Johnson and Johnson, seeing the view of a very different company. And again, I was very fortunate. The project I jumped on was a pet project of CEO Alex Gorski at the time. So I had the opportunity to meet with Alex quite a bit. Then met with some people like Ashley McAvoy, who were looking to build the company out in terms of ophthalmology. The J&J was not in ophthalmology at the time. They had a large contact lens business and vision care, but were looking to get into surgical ophthalmology in the med tech sector. And I was again fortunate to grab a hold of that initiative, beyond the team, be the commercial lead for the deal that eventually became Johnson and Johnson Surgical Vision. And I took advantage of that too. And being on that leadership team, taught me so much. It's such a big company, but at the same time, there's shared experiences and learnings that you can't get anywhere else. It's the biggest, in our industry. So starting in Janssen, the pharmaceutical companies of J&J, moving into med tech with Johnson and Johnson, experiencing things like supply chain and finance and the deal team to buy AMO. I just have been that guy who, I've worked hard, of course. Anybody that knows me, they'll say that that's sort of a thing that I do well. But at the same time, I've been also put in positions where learning was a million miles an hour and good view to the top. So learn from some great mentors and decision makers in our business.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Samsara Vision's flagship product, the Seeing IMT, and its potential impact on late-stage macular degeneration.
Yeah, when I first met the scientists or the R&D team developing this asset, I was impressed with a few things. And being in eye care, the thing that I know that is most challenging to get right in an implant is the optic. So the center of the device that's implanted into the eye has a technology that bends light or changes light as it enters the eye, and that part is hard to get right. And this company developed a true Galilean telescope. So it's a glass optic that's placed into the capsular bag during a cataract surgery, just like an intraocular lens. And then that telescope can magnify light 2.7 times and hit the right photoreceptors that create a parafoveal reception of the new image that leads a macular degeneration patient to be able to process a central image again. So I know that's technical, but basically what it does is someone who cannot see a face when they're talking to somebody, the telescopic optic projects the light a little bit larger and reduces the size of the blind spot that the patient sees. And then the surgery eye is able to see the patient's face again. So the implant is done in one eye, and then the other eye is left alone or is treated for cataract surgery with an intraocular lens, and the patient uses that eye for peripheral vision. So, and then the patient is trained to learn how to use both eyes in stereo. So they have a monovision. It's a monovision concept. We sort of say a mega monovision concept. So patients can get a central image back, but use the fellow eye for peripheral to scan their environment. So I learned about this and heard it from some of the innovators, the inventors. They had a first generation technology that was not optimally designed for surgical delivery, but featured an optic that brought 3.6 lines of vision back on average. And again, the eye chart behind me is a good illustration. Our patients usually start being able to see only the top line on an eye chart. And then after surgery, they can see 4 lines deeper. Many patients can see 5 lines deeper. We recently reported on 6-month results where 29% of patients reported the ability to read preoperatively, and 97% of patients could read postoperatively. So I learned early when I was introduced to the technology that the optics work. The company had a flawed surgical procedure. They had some ideas around fixing that. But they also had, on the business side of things, they had secured CMS reimbursement at a very high level that allowed for an average selling price for the device to be in the $13,000 to $14,000 range. And for reference, an intraocular lens in cataract surgery is about $100, and the maybe a premium IOL that's cash pay, patient pay, is around $1,000 for the company. So this being so high up there, between $13,000 and $15,000, it had a great reimbursement for a targeted population, a specialty population. But the one thing they had to fix was the surgical procedure. And strategically, I thought that they lacked a strategy for Europe, which has the largest number of macular degeneration patients in the world. So I gave them some feedback, and but I fell in love with the idea that and the patient group that I had experience with at J&J was such a needy population. There was nothing that they could do, and in the drug world that I was in, if you had a drug that could bring 3 to 4 lines of vision back to this patient population, you had a blockbuster. So here you had a surgical device that could get that kind of return for patients with a good reimbursement story, a good patient benefit story, but it lacked that ease of surgical implantation. So I gave them that feedback, and when I joined the company, they had already developed what is now the Sing IMT, or the smaller incision, new generation implantable miniature telescope, which we've solved the issues around the surgical implantation, and now a 25-minute procedure that is almost identical to a cataract surgery that's performed. It's the most commonly performed surgical procedure around the world. Now an AMD patient can benefit from getting 3 to 4 lines of vision back with a simple surgical procedure and post-operative rehabilitation that teaches them how to use the new vision. It's remarkable. And now we've done nearly 500 patients around the world, and we're reproducing that 3 to 4 lines of vision return, predictably, with an easier surgical procedure that's leading to a lower degree of surgical trauma that the patient experiences and the surgeon can appreciate. And it's a good story. And our patients are happy. And like I said, we're seeing those reading benefits, and it all comes from a good R&D team answering a problem originally, and then refining that solution to be easily implanted by the surgeon.
Well, thank you for sharing that. How do you see Samsara's visions contributing to the broader landscape of ophthalmic devices and treatments in the future?
Yeah, it's an unmet medical need. So for patients with late stage AMD, our patients are generally between 67 and 85 years of age. They have had, maybe some of them, half of them have not had a cataract surgery before. Today, without the Sing IMT in the market, they would get a standard monofocal IOL, or perhaps a toric IOL, but it would not address their central vision loss. And patients are told this going into surgery. The surgeons will say, your world will be a little bit brighter. Maybe you'll see colors a little bit better. But the patient, and I think surgeons would tell you this, they don't hear that. They hear, my cousin had cataract surgery and then they could see again. And I want to see again, so I want cataract surgery. But the AREDS publication, one of the largest studies ever on aging eyes, showed that patients with late stage AMD only experience 1.9 letters, so 1/2 of 1 line improvement after cataract surgery. So it's a group that is underserved, and there's not a huge answer. And today we have 2 companies in the United States with complement inhibitor drugs that might slow the progression of geographic atrophy, but it does not address the patients who have come over to that area of 2100 or worse. In Europe, our label is for 2080 or worse. In the US, 2160 in clinical trial or worse. So our patients are there. They don't have any other solutions. And here we are, and we can improve that vision. Now, we're currently commercially available in Europe and CE reference countries for patients that have not had a previous cataract surgery. In the United States, we're in clinical trial for patients who have not had a previous cataract surgery. And in Europe, we're about to embark on a clinical trial and a label expansion to patients who have had previous cataract surgery, where they can come in and have a simple procedure that is between 10 and 20 minutes in duration. And we can have them see the benefits of a Sing IMT as well. So we're expanding our market to in Europe to patients who have had previous cataract surgery. We'd like to do that eventually in the United States as well. So then we'd be able to access every patient globally with late stage AMD who has experienced significant vision loss from the disease. So that's where we're headed in the future. And so the question is, how do we fit? There's no other answer for these patients. So we complement all of the other technologies, whether that's the injections on the wet AMD patients. Eventually, if those patients lose vision, we're find solution for them as well. For patients who are using the American approved complement inhibitors to slow the progression of geographic atrophy, we exist at the end of their journey as well. So I think we fit nicely for AMD, where the doctor can say to the patient, through your lifestyle, first, we're going to try to get you, to use ocular vitamins, manage your lifestyle correctly, eat the right foods. If your disease progresses to wet AMD, we can treat neovascularization through these technologies that have changed the landscape. We can slow your progression of GA in the US only with complement inhibition. But at the end of the disease, if you do lose a significant amount of vision, we have a surgical option that can restore vision to you. So don't you worry as much as you would in the past. This is not the same sentence that perhaps your predecessors might have had. There are a lot of options and solutions for patients now. I think we fit nicely with the other solutions on the market.
So I have a couple of questions for you as somebody that doesn't do this for a living, right? So first of all, when somebody with macular degeneration has that central vision loss, does the loss ever change or shift, or does it always stay the same? The minute that it happens, it sort of, is what it is, and just more or less they could see peripheral colors or light, but that's all.
No, it does progress. The lesion will be small in nature when the patient's early stage. That's why anybody who has the genetic markers or family members or of Northern European populations. Yeah, I always tell people that there's no harm in getting an Amsler grid and hanging it on your fridge just to make sure that you're not progressing. An Amsler grid's an easy tool. Always take ocular vitamins. The ARIDS formulas are easily, you can find them in the grocery store. They're easy to take every day. You need a multi anyway. So everyone should be on a multi. But as the disease progresses, it steals vision slowly. The dry form of the disease is what most people have. So there's 250 million people worldwide today that are AMD patients. The vast majority of them are early stage AMD with mild vision loss, maybe 20/30, 20/40, 20/50. As those patients progress, they can go into either, I guess we're all blessed to live longer lives now. So the disease progresses in most patients that live long, fruitful lives, and they'll move into either geographic atrophy or atrophy of a region of the macula. That's on the dry AMD side, and then wet AMD that's what it's called. It's really neovascular AMD, and it's a body's response to a condition. So the AMD is sort of a hypoxic condition of the back of the eye where waste products build up and nutrients cannot get to the tissue. And you have tissue dying because of this condition of sort of metabolic condition of the back of the eye. Drusen forms, and in response to the drusen, the body produces blood vessels that are not appropriate for that space, and they break and leak. And that's why it's called wet AMD. So anti-vascular endothelial growth factor medications or injections can stop that neovascular process, but it doesn't address the underlying disease, the age-related macular, the drusen formation, and the origination of the disease process. So at the end of the disease process, even with wet AMD, you may be left with a scar or lesion that steals central vision in a progressive nature. Most patients will reach a plateau, so the disease will eventually reach a plateau. But in the later set in our 60s, 70s, 80s, those patients would lose a good deal of vision, and many of them will cross over into blindness. And late stage, AMD is about 5% of the total AMD patients today. So maybe 200 million, 250 million patients have late stage or have AMD, and about 12 to 13 million patients have late stage AMD or progressed AMD, where vision loss and blindness is their story.
So the second question is, so when your device is placed, inside of the eye, I'm envisioning then that the surgeon can spot the focal point of the Seeing IMT then whenever they place it. Is that
Oh,
how it works?
no, it's even simpler than that. It's really an Occam's razor solution. This device is placed in the anterior chamber, so in the anterior segment, so in the front of the eye. During a cataract surgery, your lens is removed, the human lens is removed, and then this telescope is placed into the eye indiscriminate. So you don't need to point it at areas of good vision. So the macula is the dead center of the focal point of the back of the eye in a normal, healthy eye. So what we do is we project light parafoveally. So we flood the zone with light that is enhanced and enlarged. And the parafoveal tissue is not as good in a healthy eye as seeing a central image. But when the image is enlarged 2.7 times, the parafoveal tissue is sufficient to see a central image, and that we've proven that now the optic has been placed in over 1,200 patients worldwide, and we see the results are very, very predictable and repeatable. But the Sing IMT now in almost 500 patients, we get the same results as the first generation. So this optic changes the focal point, so it's not as pinpoint into the fovea and into the macula, and it's parafoveal in its projection of light. So the patient's functioning photoreceptors can receive the image, and the brain can learn to read that as the central image.
I'm glad I asked that because I mean I was envisioning like central vision loss, dead center, and then sort of, you guys were pinpointing some other spot, that hadn't lost vision yet, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So a couple other questions for you. First of all, what's the most significant leadership advice you ever received?
Yeah, I'll credit Tom Frenzy for this. He once shared with me that the best thing that a professional can do is be with the customer and out of the office as much as possible. And I had experience with that in my job at Alcon with Asia Pacific, where I was in the countries, for 2 weeks of every month for 3.5 years and traveling extensively. And I got to meet so many wonderful people in that experience. But Tom's, advice was to get to know the surgeons, physicians, staff, clinical people, the people that are at the point of care. Get to know as many patients as you can, because they are people that are there. He said, no matter where you go in your career, those people are there, and they're doing their work. So I took that serious, and I look at my career now, third company, is not done. I'm 49 years old. I think I have a long way to go. But I do love the ophthalmic industry and all the people here. So the relationships I've made along the way are important, whether they're in the boardroom or in the operating room. In fact, I do enjoy being in the operating room more than I enjoy being in the boardroom most times, and seeing the wonderful things that people do to restore vision to patients. And I feel like as a business person, I'm there. My duty is to help the ophthalmic community, bring innovations to them to help them better serve patients. I'm sort of a servant to the surgeons and physicians that do their work around the world, and that was Tom's advice, and I take that serious. And I think I give that advice to as many people as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. What inspires you?
I think that's a great question. I am inspired. I'm a sucker for a video, a reel that shows a person overcoming massive adversity and living their best life in a way that ultimately to their potential. I'm also an athlete, and I think most people know me know that about me. And I think that I'm not a gifted athlete. I'm a person that works hard to be the best athlete I can be on a daily basis. Same with work. I work hard to be the best leader I can be on a daily basis. So when I see someone, overcoming adversity, I like to watch the Paralympic Games, and to watch people perform on such a high level where they have every reason not to, and to call it quits, and that inspires me. Our patients inspire me. People that are willing to do something about their latter years. So, I've been in the 1-day post-ops where, I had this amazing story in Ireland where one of our patients had her surgery. She was maybe 2,200, 2,300, she legally blind and then some. And on the same day she had her surgery, her granddaughter was born, and it was her first grandchild that she would be able to see the face of the grandchild in their early years. And she was crying. I was crying. The surgeon was crying. So these stories of overcoming adversity and doing everything you can to live your best life, that's what gets me up and gets me started every day.
Awesome. What concerns you?
Watching the world around us today, as a person that does global business, you know, I think sometimes we can forget that politicians and governments are one thing, populations and people are another thing. I have so many friends that don't hang an American flag on their front door like I do, but I love and respect them, and see them as a friend, a dear friend, and I just hope that the nationalism that we see in our news today, that's look, everybody can feel proud about their nation, but don't forget, we're all the people around the world. We should be one global community in the sense that we do hang our flag of our country, but when we're working together to solve a problem, we're much better off. And I've had great interactions with friends in China and Europe, and today, as we deal with some of the things that we see that our politicians are going through in the news, I hope our countries work it out, but I hope that we all can live as a global community that's trying to solve problems that our mutual people have, especially our elderly and handicapped populations that all have the same struggles, no matter where you were born. So I hope that we don't lose that ability to connect on a global basis, and have products meet the needs of patients around the world, regardless of where, like I said, where they're born.
Yeah, it is interesting to me because you kind of think back to, I mean, let's just go back before you could even um, fly on an airplane anywhere. It would be easier to say, hey, look, I only want to do things for my country and my country alone, because it's harder to kind of envision the world. I mean, of course, at
Yeah.
that point in time, we were populated with more people
Yeah.
anyway, that were probably from other places, anyway. And
Yeah.
then you sort of think about all of the technology that we have today, between, being able to fly to most places in the world in under 24 hours, being able to, essentially connect like this, virtually within seconds to anyone, having a telephone and internet capabilities that we have. You just think of the globe being the globe. It's really shrinking from that standpoint, and yet we have people, that want, for whatever reason, to try and isolate us. And I understand there are lots of political drivers, out there, but at the same time, as you're saying, we're all better together,
Yeah.
is my belief as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope that the world can figure out how trade is done to benefit, whoever is, and there's no unfair trade balance. We don't want that. But at the same time, I don't want people that are great friends with me in China to not be able to do business with me anymore. I mean, that would be a terrible side effect of political issues. And same with Europe. Again, it's we're all, like you said, we're all one people, and we should be able to figure out a way to make things fair and equitable, do business with each other, and benefit the lives of all populations.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. What excites you?
I think I'm excited for the future of technology, because there's, I think some of the world, as the world moves towards, the most exciting technology, AI and the things that we're going to see in our consumer technology and in the future. AI in medicine is going to be exciting as well. And, as tech accelerates in one area, I think that's very exciting. It's exciting to me, of course. But what I hope we don't lose, and what, our product is, like I said, an Occam's razor solution where it doesn't need advanced technology to be successful. I hope we don't lose the idea that simple solutions, are game changers too. But I'm excited. I think I'm excited for a future that is a future that allows people to live their lives at their fullest and be happiest from birth to elderly age. And we see that, I don't. I'm always telling people that I see this last 15 years and the next 15 years, so a 30, 40-year period, as very similar to the 30, 40-year period of the Industrial Revolution, where people left the farms and went to cities. And, there's so many great documentaries about the world in those years, and the same conspiracy theories and the same, craziness around industrialization of the world and then the globalization of the economy happened then, as you see now. So, I think this is just a different revolution, but a revolution nonetheless. I hate to call it a digital revolution because I think that's too simplistic. I think it's a complete change in the way our brains function. It's also very unique that it's, to me, Charles Darwin's theory of evolution extends to the necessities, right? So predators and natural selection, and people reaching apex predator, which we have many years ago. But here we are, a species that's adapted an evolutionary enhancement to our brains in the form of collective information gathering in the internet, collective access to information in the form of smartphones and smart technology, instant communication devices like the ones that we're communicating on right now, and eventually artificial intelligence that augments brains and creates a collective consciousness that's far beyond what we're able to do now. So I don't know of any other stories. I don't think the dinosaurs were able to evolve beyond apex predator. Here we are continuing on our evolutionary journey, even though there's no threat to the ability to reproduce. So, I tell you, this is probably for another podcast, but I'm excited that we're taking this journey into collective information gathering and collective consciousness. I hope it's for the best. There are going to be times that it's not for the best, but eventually, 200, 300 years from now, once we're long gone, the life is not going to look the same as it does now. And I think you could have said that standing on a farm in Des Moines, Iowa in 1850 or 1860, and then looking at Des Moines in 1975, 1980, when you had factories and economies that were different. And, so, what does North Carolina look like right now? And what will North Carolina look like in 150 years when technology has changed us so much? And, that's, I guess, what makes me excited about the world is the continued progress, and how the continued progress leads to more satisfying, deeper, richer lives for people who are able, and also for people with significant handicaps and disabilities that want to enjoy life just like you and I do. And I think that's, again, for me, what drives me. So that's probably a lot more than you wanted, but that's what makes me very excited.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, I think it's a great time to be alive. I feel like there's so many pivotal things, one, that have already happened with, so much of the technology that we have access to, but you could also envision that now, the world accelerates even faster because of some of the capabilities and being able to connect the dots a little quicker than we could have otherwise.
Yep.
Somebody had said, and I've said this on a couple of podcasts now, somebody said this to me not too long ago, that now coding applications happen something like 84% faster because they can use AI tools, to get over some of the initial humps, and then, kind of deal much more on the, the key development aspects. So
Yeah.
to me,
Yeah. And now turn that
it's exciting.
into cellular biology
Right.
and turn it against cancer and
Yeah.
see what now that same 84%, which really is like a logarithmic doubling of the ability to code and to improve and enhance computing systems, turn that against cancer. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that we are 1 to 2 generations away from solving the cancer problem altogether.
Wouldn't that be great? Well, Tom, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast. I really appreciate you coming here and telling me about Samsara Vision and all the great things that you guys are doing. And I look forward to staying in touch and hearing more about your journey.
Don, pleasure's mine. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it, and last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.